have to ask you how that goes after I get back. All right, we're at 4 o'clock and we'll call the meeting to order this May 20th, 2021 Humboldt County Association of Governments Board meeting, which is held in accordance with the governor's executive order. There's information on making public comment on the HCOG website, as well as a ribbon on the screen below for the Zoom meeting here, and on channels 10, 11, and 12 on Suddenlink. And with the meeting called to order, we will have a roll call, please.
Hey, Supervisor Bass,
Here.
Mayor Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember West,
Here.
Chair Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Arroyo, Jesse Robertson.
Here.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for that. And I want to welcome the board. I forgot to do that before I started. Our first order of business is adjournment as the HCOG board and reconvening as the Policy Advisory Committee to allow the participation of HTA, Humboldt Transit Authority, and Caltrans. And our first item of business is public participation for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public participation at this time?
No, we do not.
Okay. Well, moving right along, we come to the approval of the meeting record for April 15th, 2021 meeting. Did everyone get a chance to look over that?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of April 15th, 2021 as delivered.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you. And our next item is a presentation by Caltrans and project manager Jeff Pimentel on the 101 corridor project. And we look forward to that. So thank you.
Christy, have you heard from Jeff? Has he contacted you about presenting today?
Yes, and he did accept today's invitation, but it doesn't look like he has logged in yet. So if I could go ahead and contact him, I'll do that at this time.
Yeah, I received a kind of a returned email today from him saying that he wasn't in the office. So so I don't know if that was an emergency departure or not, but we do, I did receive just a brief update, but I suggest we if we can't get a hold of him, we may want to reschedule today's presentation for another time when he will be here. And the only information I really have is that the project is now out for bid for an 8-week period. So so I would imagine maybe in July or at the August meeting, something like that, we might be able to have a contractor on board, but or low bid. So so maybe we could wait for Christie's results, but maybe we can move on to another agenda item because that's all the information I have.
That's what I was thinking. While we're waiting, we can move to the consent calendar. And we have 2 items on the consent calendar: approval of the funding agreement between Humboldt Transit Authority, the City of Arcata, County of Humboldt, and HCOG for dial-a-ride service and the fiscal year 2021 RSTP allocations. Is there anything, anybody want to pull anything?
Chair Johnson, I would move for approval of consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Get a roll call. If
Supervisor-
Chris-
Yes, Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes,
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes,
Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. There were no items pulled, so we have the PAC action items. First being the 2021-22 overall work program, final budget, and the compensation study. Do we have a staff report?
I'll be giving this staff report today. Beth Burks, Executive Director at HCOG. So this item is approval of the fiscal year 2021-22 overall work program and budget. And it also includes the results of the recently completed compensation study and explains a little bit about how that was incorporated into the budget. So in February, we brought the draft OWP to your board and it was approved, and that allowed us to send it to Caltrans for formal review. We received that review and their letter is attached to the staff report. So we spent some time addressing those changes. Those changes appear in red text throughout the OWP that was included with your staff report. And the biggest changes were to the narrative sections of the OWP. We provided more information about the regional overview and our transportation needs, priorities, goals, and issues. We also added additional discussion about our decision-making process and how we consult with Native American tribes. The needs, priorities, goals, and issues section was included based on the adopted regional transportation plan, as well as the direction we've been receiving on the RTP update sections that have been coming before your board over the last few months. And there's also 22,000 increase to the budget, and that was due to local transportation fund carryover. So the compensation study portion is related to the overall work program because there are changes recommended to staff compensation that are reflected in the overall budget. So the compensation study was authorized by the board in August of 2020, and staff got the results of that and met with the executive committee to discuss those results. And based on those, we are recommending increases to the salary ranges for the fiscal administrative officer and the executive director. And those are presented in the staff report. And these recommendations are being made to bring these positions closer to the labor market median. So with that, I'll close my staff report and I'll turn it over. I'm not sure if anyone from the executive committee would like to speak on this or if there's any questions I can answer.
Are there any questions from the board? Here's none.
I have a comment. On page 11, where you have the organizational chart, and under HCOG board, it says governing body, 8 members, 1 member of the Board of Supervisors, and then it says 1 member, 1 from each incorporated city. I'd just like you to scratch the word 1, I think.
Thank you, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, and I read the Caltrans letter and then read when I was reading the OWP and seeing all the edits, I noticed how you incorporated their comments, their suggestions and such into the report. And I'm sure that it will more than meet their needs now. and did a great job in talking about the area and the people. And so I appreciate that. Any other comments? Hearing none. I've got so much I've been doing between rodeo, Autorama, Auto Expo, and this. Do we have well, we will pass all these as we come down. So we'll move to the consultant selection for the Humboldt County SAFE. And again, I believe Director Burks is doing this one.
Yes, thank you. We're really excited to bring this item forward. This is an action item to authorize the executive director to negotiate a contract with Case Emergency Systems for the Humboldt County Safe Callbox Maintenance and Expansion Project. So we did publish an RFP widely and placed an ad in the Times Standard. And Case was the only proposal we received. And in talking with other executive directors from other RTPAs, this is not unusual. They are pretty much almost exclusively the provider throughout California. So I think that, certainly our neighboring counties have had the same experience, that they are the only responsive proposer. I will say that we found their proposal to be thorough and responsive. And additionally, we already work with Case for ongoing maintenance. They do this kind of at this point, we're working out of contract, but they've been gracious enough to help us and continue providing that maintenance. And staff here has reported them to, be great to work with, positive interactions, good communications, and responsiveness. So that is encouraging. And I also wanted to mention that in addition to the maintenance, we are looking to expand our callbox system. And in looking at how we want to go about that, I would like to come back to your board with a proposal for a callbox strategic plan. I noticed they have these in other regions. It's been a long time since we've added any call boxes to our system. And I just want to make sure that we have a methodology that we understand going forward about how we'll add those call boxes and a bit of a financial analysis to look at how many we can reasonably install and maintain for the funds we have available. And then with that, we can also contemplate, is it sustainable to continue the patrols, the supplemental patrols that have been authorized, and now that we're actually going to be spending safe funds to expand call boxes. So I just want to make sure we're on track and we don't just get, yes, everyone gets a call box and then find out we can't afford to maintain them or install all of them. So I don't think that strategic plan needs to be overly complicated. It's something we intend to prepare in-house and bring back to your board in the next couple of months. So at this time, we're really just suggesting that you authorize myself to negotiate with Case, and we can get the maintenance contract underway and start working with, with them on that, and to upgrade the existing call boxes as well, so that they meet ADA specifications. And then, as I said, we'll kind of, approach the expansion once we have our methodology set for that. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Are there any questions?
Well, I've brought this up before, and with everybody having cell phones, and even people that don't have the fancy ones, at least have a flip phone or something like that. And I just really wonder about the need for these call boxes anymore. I mean, convince me that they're relevant anymore. Seriously.
Yeah, I think that's, Mayor Jones, that's a great question, if I may, through the chair, answer. I think one of the things we're really looking at, and why I want to be a little cautious with the budget moving forward, is satellite call boxes in areas where there is no cell reception. So that is where it's most crucial. Even if everyone has a cell phone, there's just areas on our roads, on the 36, on the 96, that even with all the cell phones, nobody's going to be able to make a call. And I think those are the most crucial locations for us to be analyzing in terms of placing new call boxes. We can, through this program, also evaluate call boxes that have no or little use and see if it's still relevant to keep maintaining those. So it may involve decommissioning some and putting new ones in areas where we don't have proper coverage.
Well, what I've noticed is when I drive on 299, because we have some property out in Trinity Village, that right about the time I lose my cell service is right about the time I see the last call box to Salyer, which is where we take off. So, I mean, they must have some coordination between each other. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not that technically adept at it, but it just seems like it goes with, at least on 299, I've noticed, as soon as I see that last call box on 299, then there's the dead zone between there and, I don't know, probably not till like closer to Weaverville. I don't know. I don't go that much further east. But anyway, I brought this up before. I brought this up years ago about this. I mean, it's just, and just more and more people have cell phones now, but I understand there's some areas, because Estelle Fennell used to talk a lot about Highway 36 and those areas in her district. And I really don't go out there, so I don't know. So there may be a valid point there. But it seems like in some areas, we do really need to look at the viability of this and whether it's a good use of funds. Just something to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I've had issues east of Salyer myself, and that hole down the bottom of Redwood Valley area before you, and they can be challenges there, definitely. And I was just curious what the cost basis was for the satellite phones versus the cell phones, especially if we start looking at some of the more remote areas.
Yeah, we're analyzing that with Case now. I did get some additional information. They are a little bit more expensive just to install in the first place. They're a couple thousand more per, like just for the hardware for the call box. And then the airtime is really expensive. And I don't expect these calls to be particularly long, but for example, it's $45 for 1.25 minutes of somebody picking up that phone. So that part is very expensive. And then we're getting the estimate about what will it take to, for the monthly maintenance fee. For example, a cellular call box is only $45 a month. So as part of this expansion plan, and why I wanted to look at kind of a strategic plan there is really analyzing those costs of what it would take to run a satellite system, because we don't have any satellite call boxes right now, which is why you see, why they end there, sort of when cell reception ends, which seems to me to be, the prime reason we would need these call boxes in areas where we don't have the option to pick up the cell phone. So I think that's important. And then I will say, what I think, Mayor Jones, to your point about, is this a good use of funds? These funds are really limited in what we can use them for. So we can't really divert them other areas. I think we have been able to fund the supplemental patrols, and I will continue to research the variety of uses. I know in more urban areas, they have during high traffic times, they'll have like roving tow trucks during rush hour to make sure they can get accidents off the road, and they use their safe funding for that. We don't really have that need here. So, I will continue to research in a rural setting, options for uses of these funds, because we do have, quite a bit available after some time of backlog. So I think it's wise, and then hopefully the strategic plan will allow us to consider those options and kind of come up with a plan moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's something that TAC can look at too, the Technical Advisory Committee, and they can maybe make some suggestions on that too. As I said, I only know about that portion of 299 that I'm aware of as far as my reception goes, but I do understand there's other sensitive areas. And I do understand about funds being allocated for specific purposes. I understand that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to ask something quickly. Beth, is there some way we can find out information, kind of general information of how they put call boxes out and where they put them, or what's the general plan, so we could find out a little bit more about how they work? I'm not sure I get a clear picture of what those things, where they put them and why they place them in certain places.
Yeah, I think the placement and why and where we place them, that is primarily under local control. So our plan would be to meet, for example, Bridgeville United is a group that's been really advocating for call boxes in their area. They've analyzed their stretch of 36 and some of their local roads and really figured out where they feel like they see the most wrecks, where they have dead zones, and they have a plan that they want to present to say, hey, please give us call boxes in these particular locations. Then we would go out to that area with case systems, and they would do their analysis. Well, is it too close to the, where does it land next to the edge of pavement? Can we fit one here that's ADA accessible? And they kind of look at it from that very technical side of, is it feasible with, the constraints of working within Caltrans right of way and all of these things, is it feasible to locate a box there? And then we would just pay case to have it installed. If you would like in the future, we could get more information. I don't have all the technical exactly like how the hardware works and that kind of information, but generally we have a lot of local control over where we place these. There is a guidebook that says, again, the sort of functionality of where they belong and how close they can be to edge of pavement and that kind of thing.
And how far they can be spread out from each other? Do we need, I'm just curious, but thank you. That's good. Sum up right there.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Mike, I was wondering how many of the satellite phones are currently in use by, the various COGs.
I don't have an exact answer for that. I did at a recent meeting ask, just our District 1 counterparts. I think in Mendocino, they only have 2. And they were excited that one of them, as cell coverage increases, you can sort of downgrade them to be cellular based as opposed to satellite based. And again, that's why I want to make sure we understand the cost of these satellite call boxes, because they did mention that they were expensive to continue to maintain, and that if they had the option to do the cellular boxes, they prefer those. So I want to make sure we're kind of going into it with clear eyes before we get really excited about a dozen new satellite boxes.
Thank you.
I have one that just popped into my head thinking about some people have made comments regarding like Mattoll Road and all. And I was wondering if there is any requirement that these be on a state highway, or they need to be on can they be on a collector or an arterial on the CRS maps?
Yeah, actually, that is my understanding that there is some provision that they can go on local roads. It doesn't all need to be on a state highway, and we'd want to do that analysis to make sure whichever local road we're putting it on qualifies. But I think those sort of regionally identified important roads, those are eligible.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no other comment, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have a vote, roll call? Or do we do that? Go ahead.
Okay, roll call. Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And as a matter of housekeeping, because I skipped it, the overall work plan, a motion regarding that.
I would make a motion that we adopt resolution 21-14, approving the overall work program and budget, and exhibit a salary range schedule for fiscal year 21-22.
Second by Gordon Johnson.
Okay. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
I was gonna say, let me think about it, but yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson.
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes with one abstention.
Okay.
Chair Johnson, if I can, I have a quick update from Jeff Pimentel. He was having connectivity issues. He's texted me. Luckily, I checked my phone, and he says he thinks he's got them resolved. He should be able to jump on in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So just an update on that.
Okay. Well, that will, yeah, I think we can do that. So next item is approval of a letter of support for the NCRA application for rail banking north of Willits.
Right, I'm up again. So this item, as you mentioned, is the letter of support for the North Coast Railroad Authority to their rail banking application. And this is for the section north of Willits to the terminus at Humboldt Bay. And this would allow for preservation of the public right-of-way and facilitate future trail development, but doesn't mandate future trail development. Again, it does preserve the corridor. This letter is on our agenda because several of our HCOG plans and our policies in our regional transportation plan, they encourage preservation of this corridor. And then in 2018, HCOG submitted a letter of support for transitioning the railway to the Great Redwood Trail. So I wanted to put this on as an action item. I know that it had some vigorous discussion when it went to the Board of Supervisors. So I didn't want to just assume that it was a consent item, but we have, your board has offered support for this in the past. So I wanted to just bring it here and make sure there was an opportunity for discussion. And with that, I'll leave it open to questions or further discussion.
Supervisor Bass.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a bit of discussion, but I think, our board is, kind of we're all very different, and have very different areas, and there's different concerns. So, overall, I think writing one from this group is fine. But yeah, there was some spirited discussion, but that piece is done now. So I'm perfectly fine with supporting one.
Well, there wasn't just spirited discussion. It was actually a 3-2 vote.
Yeah.
Two supervisors voted no to send the letter. So it wasn't just a discussion where everybody said, okay, now we agree.
Well,
They
that
didn't.
but that is why I think she called it a spirited discussion. We didn't want to say a brawl almost broke out. That just didn't seem right to say. Felt that way.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Well, as a person who is a big proponent of trails, I'm a bicyclist myself. And I absolutely love our Annie and Mary Rail Trail that's in our town of Blue Lake. It's being used from the moment it started, even before it opened, it was being used. So it's just a wonderful thing. And I just don't know how we're going to get Blue Lake connected to Arcata when we have a river between us, but we're going to work things out, I think. I'm hopefully optimistic. Anyway, I'm a big proponent and I would be very much in favor of this letter.
Okay, any other? Well, I would say that from what I've found in my research is that putting it in a rail bank doesn't so much facilitate the beginning of the trail as much as preserve the right of way, whether for the railroad or for a trail. I too am a proponent of trails, and we actually have a trail in the right of way down here, just outside the Fortuna city limits by about 5 or 6 feet. It starts just because that's where the right of way was at the time. And I'm in favor of rail banking this, so I will make that known. And any other discussion?
Yeah, I agree with you there. And we had that issue even in Blue Lake because we hadn't had the railroad in so long, and some owners of property started to landscape and do things. They just thought it was their property, and so you're right, it does maintain that, that banking for the rail in case it does come back. So I agree with you there.
If we don't have any more comment, we can entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that the HCOG board authorize staff to send a letter of support for NCRA's application to rail bank the rail corridor.
Second by Gordon Johnson.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, Christie?
Okay, Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, and do we have Jeff on logged in now?
No, he's not logged on yet.
Okay, well, we'll move on to item D, the Regional Transportation Plan update and administrative drafts. Thank you, Una.
Thank you. Hello, members of the PAC. So before you today is the aviation element and the goods movement element. Both of these are required elements in every regional transportation plan. So although HCOG does not have any direct oversight responsibilities for aviation funding or goods movement funding, goods movement is for freight or passenger transport through air, marine, rail, or surface, surface mainly being roads, trucking, cargo. So our role in transportation planning really is primarily to coordinate with the agencies who do that and have the authority to do that, and make sure that we have consistency in our transportation planning for our regional network. I also wanted to just briefly summarize what's in the staff report by reiterating the agencies that we would be looking to for updates and project lists for aviation would be the operators of the 9 airports. So mostly the projects we have in there are from the County of Humboldt, who owns and operates 6 of the 9 airports, and then also there's the Hoopa Valley Tribe and the City of Eureka and the Shelter Cove Resort Improvement District number 1. And then under goods movement, most of the surface stuff really, I've never gotten much comments from the trucking industry. And then the rest of the roadway stuff, as you well know, also gets covered in our complete streets element, which is a lot more popular, and we get a lot more comments on that. So most of the projects in the goods movement is for the Maritime freight, and the Harbor District gives us projects. And I have spoken with Larry Utker, who has a lot of stuff in the works and has said that he would be commenting for the harbor after the public release of this, so later in the summer. So what is before you today is an administrative draft that we would recommend to present to the public. However, wanted to make sure you're aware that the aviation needs section of the elements and also the action plan, which is the project lists, those are not updated yet because the authoritative agencies have not yet given us any revisions. So with that, it ends my summary.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Una regarding this?
Hello? I do.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Right,
Supervisor
and
Bass.
actually, this is not, I appreciated that. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the aviation. We have the new flight that came in yesterday, packed with 180 plus people and left with 180 plus people. So that's all. It's exciting. It's nice to have something good to report. So lately.
That's great.
Yes.
That much I was able to write in the administrative draft because there were news stories about it. So that was great. And I also wanted to note for everyone that two notable updates for the aviation is that the California Aviation System Plan, which is part of the state's California Transportation Plan 2050, that has been adopted since the last RTP update. And also the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan has been updated. So that is reflected in the administrative draft. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I know it's hard when you have to wait for a third party to reply, shall we say, for the updates that you would receive to put into the plan, if there were any. So it's kind of puts you in a spot. I understand. Well, if we have none, we can look for a motion.
I move that the PAC recommend that the HCOG board approve draft aviation system and goods movement elements for release as public review drafts.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second, and can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, with that, I think I saw a message from Jeff. We can reconvene take a motion to reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations.
I'll make that motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that motion, Mayor Jones.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconvene as the HCOG board and accept the PAC recommendations and approve them. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. Well, as we come to the HCOG and staff and PAC reports, and I believe Mr. Pimentel had messaged in. I don't know if he was able to get logged into the meeting or not.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
All right. So I apologize for being late. We're camping today. I'm off the next couple days and we're camping out in the cloud, and connection is a little spotty, but I was able to get to a location that's working. So anyway, I apologize for being late. You guys should have put me at the end of the meeting for being late.
You're almost at the end.
So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint that I'll share with everyone. So let's get that up. And I apologize if you guys also hear some screaming kids in the background as well. I'm in the trailer here, but I've told everyone they need to be quiet, but they forget after 5 minutes. So can you guys see the Eureka Arcata corridor presentation there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeff Pimentel. I'm the project manager for the Eureka Arcata corridor set of projects here between Eureka and Arcata. There are 5 projects that we embarked on, cleared under one environmental document some years ago, and I'm sure a lot of you have been with this project and been involved with it a lot longer than I have, and have much more appreciation for it, and probably a lot very excited to see it come into fruition. So I just wanted to give you guys an update because there's been some big developments. A lot of things have been completed, projects in the corridor that have been completed, and the big, Indianola undercrossing and half signal, which we're partnering with HCOG and you guys have put in significant amount of funding for, is coming down soon to begin construction. So I just I spoke with Beth recently and got on the agenda here to give you guys all an update. So some of this may be a little bit redundant, but I think there are some new members on the board and just wanted to kind of give everyone a background. So anyway, the safety corridor, the Eureka Arcata corridor, was established back in 2002. So we're going on almost 20 years since the 50-mile-an-hour speed zone, the daytime headlight zone, the increased fines, all of that came, which was a legislative action back in 2002 to establish that safety corridor. I remember back when I was a kid, I remember seeing this picture, this billboard, just calling the corridor Blood Alley, and just the need to go and do and make safety improvements in the corridor. We've had a lot of great partnerships, a fantastic one with HCOG, and others such as the county and city of Arcata as well, with their trail projects, and other local municipalities, as well as the permitting agencies and whatnot, to really work together to bring this important piece of all the suite of improvements to the community. And then in terms of project goals, really, at the forefront is safety, but also just getting vehicles between Arcata and Eureka in a more efficient, safe manner, while also having multimodal components to it, with our partnering with the trail projects and being able to provide funding for them to ensure that they are successful as well. So there's a lot of things at play here, and multimodal and context sensitive solutions, not just focusing on traffic, is a big part of Caltrans' mission. And while there has, it's been kind of a transition for the culture to shift in that direction, but it is deep seated now, and we're excited to be delivering these types of projects that have such big benefit to the community. I don't know, I think a lot of you have probably seen this video. I was going to play it. I think it was done by a gentleman that owns a business called Sky Blue Photography, and I'm missing
Tom
his name
Stewart,
right now.
right? Thomas Stewart.
Thomas Stewart, that's it. I couldn't remember his name off the top of my head. So he set up a camera on a light pole and just recorded some of the traffic movements. His original uncut footage is, I believe, over an hour long. This is cut down to about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. But I'll go ahead and play this. Holler if it's not playing. I'm not sure if this is going to work over screen share, but hopefully it does. And whenever I see this video, just, we have so many projects in the district statewide that we're working on, and, we always hear like, okay, this safety project or this widening job or whatever the scope may be. But, sometimes when, I know for me, what drove it home, and a lot of times when we're going through challenges on this project, which it's had its challenges for sure. And when, working with the team, and I share this with them because it just reminds you of just the unfortunate, circumstances that are out there today that we all utilize, our families utilize, our coworkers utilize, and friends. And so we're really excited as a department and our partners to be able to bring this project, because it's just a, an unfortunate kind of traffic situation out there that we're looking to and happy to see will be resolved soon. So I presume I didn't hear from anyone, so I take it that video played fine for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. So moving on, just to give everyone kind of lay of the land on the projects. When we reference Eureka Arcata corridor projects, there's 5. The one Indianola at the top, Indianola undercrossing and half signal. That's the one that we partnered with HCOG in terms of funding partnership with. The acceleration deceleration lane project and all the green areas, extending the accel and decel lanes to meet current design standards. And then the high tension cable median barrier project in the orange areas, installing the high tension cable barrier. In some areas where no barrier existed before, and in some areas we replaced kind of traditional guardrail that was there today, or we actually call it thriving in terms of what was out there in the corridor. And then a bridge rail and rail replacement project. So again, in Slough and Jacoby Creek. In the northbound direction, we are replacing the bridge rails on Jacoby Creek and again in Slough. And in the southbound direction, we're replacing the actual Jacoby Creek bridge itself. And you've probably seen that if you've driven between Eureka and Arcata anytime in the last few months. And then replacing a number of tide gates adjacent to the highway as well. So with that, I'm just going to give an update on each of these and where we stand. But actually, before I do that, this is a nice little photo. Real exciting in terms of the final segment of the Bay Trail South that Humboldt County is working on, and we're part of them on funding, as well as providing a significant amount of wetland mitigation for the project. And we also did the same and are doing the same with mitigation for City of Arcata's Bay Trail North. So I'm really excited. I used to be a big cyclist, and I'm hoping that this trail gets me into more. So that'll be a really nice asset to the community once that final segment's in. In terms of dollars on the project, a total construction capital investment in the corridor between all 5 projects is totaling about $72 million. And some people, look at that and say, wow, that's so much money. And it is a lot of money. And I know, unfortunately, we've had some cost increases on the Indianola project that, unfortunately, I know has impacted RIP shares when those increases did occur. This capital cost is for all 5 projects. But the point I like to make here is that in our region, it's difficult to compete for transportation dollars because a large portion of those dollars are based on capacity and volume and population. And those are all things that we don't compete well in a rural area. So what's great is that safety dollars always go to the top of the list, and those come off the top of those funding programs. So when there are safety needs, those are funded first. And, in our community, as I mentioned, being hard to compete for transportation dollars, what's great about this is that we were able to secure a significant amount of transportation dollars to make these needed improvements in the corridor. So it's nice to see a big investment when you look at it in that perspective being made in our community for our roadways. And then in terms of our contributions to Humboldt Bay Trails for north and south, will be contributing a total $2.25 million. All right, so moving on, the acceleration deceleration lane project that was completed last year in 2020. So that was great to see completed. This is a shot of the finished product there, just adjacent to the Harper Ford and Mid-City Motor World businesses. The high tension cable median barrier project was also completed. That's there between Eureka Slough Bridge and Airport Road, looking, that's the southbound lanes, but looking in the northbound direction there. And then the bridge and bridge rail replacement project will be completed this fall of 2021. We did complete bridge rail replacements in the northbound direction at Jacoby Creek and Gannon Slough, as well as rail replacement on Gannon Slough. Well, I take that back, actually, not in the southbound direction, just the northbound. But we did pour the temporary location of the structure in the southbound direction on Jacoby Creek Bridge. And you probably noticed kind of a meandering detour that leads up to it and then off of it. And so soon here, traffic will start utilizing that detour as we prepare to demolish and remove the old structure that we're driving on today, as well as removing the existing abutments and constructing new abutments for the new structure. And the structure that's there today that we will be driving on as a detour is actually the completed and final structure. So once the old structure is removed, the new abutments are constructed, we'll actually jack and slide that bridge it's already constructed into its final location. So it'll be a really cool, innovative process to see and that we're utilizing to move that structure in its final location. I'm told that'll be taking place likely over a weekend, over a couple nights. And then moving on, so the Indianola undercrossing and half signal. And actually, I didn't mention in here or any pictures of it, but the Tide Gates project is also complete. So the Indianola undercrossing and half signal project was just delivered and reached our ready to list milestone here in the last couple months. So design is complete. Bidding on the project and advertisement actually begun on May 10th. So the project is actually out for advertisement now to contractors. We will be doing a 8-week advertisement period. So we've extended the advertisement period about 2 to 3 weeks longer than we typically would. We just wanted to give contractors ample time to be able to really review the project and put a good bid, and also try to increase the probability that we get more contractors bidding on it as well. So this project, we expect to have a contractor on board and selected by September of this year, after we go through the bid, advertise, contract award, and then contract approval process. And we expect to have ground disturbing activity and construction begin either late this year or early next year. And so that'll kind of work its way out after we have the contractor on board in September. And there are some kind of administrative elements and items that they'll need to take care of before they're cleared to be able to work. But we expect to start seeing some activity out there in this year or early 2022. And the project will take 3 to 4 seasons to complete. Here's a before and after rendering, and by no means is this what it will look in the final state. These renderings were done quite a few years back and are not updated based on the abutments with some artwork that's on there, wing walls that are there that will have some artwork on them as well, and kind of some concrete form liners. So, but that just kind of gives you an idea of what the before and after looks like looking out towards the bay from Indianola. And then also looking in the southbound direction from kind of between the future Bay Trail South and the southbound off ramp. And there will be a connection. I'm not sure if I've got it on that, but we don't have the picture here on this slide, but there will be a connection from the trail to Indianola. So if you are on the trail, want to make your way to Indianola, or vice versa, you're on Indianola, say you're coming from Old Arcata Road, Indianola, then you want to make your way to the trail, you will be able to do that. This is a kind of a striping plan of what the half signal at Airport Road will look like. Essentially, all directions of travel at the intersection will be controlled by a signal, but we call it a half signal because northbound traffic is controlled by the signal, but southbound traffic that wants to go through will be free flowing and not be controlled by the signal. So if you're coming from Arcata, going into Eureka, going southbound through, you'll be able to do that without being controlled by the signal, but all the left turns in and out will be controlled. So that's all I had. Again, I apologize for being late, but that's the current update I've got. Do we have any questions?
Jeff, I've got a question. This is Gordon Johnson. And when this is all completed in 2024, 2025, 2026, what's the speed limit going to be between Eureka and Arcata?
So this question comes up a lot. The speed limit will be dictated by the 85th percentile speed, and so speed surveys will need to be done. Setting of the speed is part of the vehicle code, so that'll be dictated by that process. We intend to open the facility at the 50 miles an hour, but could it increase? Yes, and that'll be dictated by the vehicle code and the 85th percentile speed out of that process.
And a second question, there's a drainage element that was element number 5 of the 5-part package. When is it estimated to be completed?
The Tide Gates project?
5 drainage, the drainage portion of the 5-element project.
Yeah, so the Tide Gate replacement project is complete.
Okay.
Yeah, that was also complete. I didn't have a slide in there for that one. I apologize, but that one is completed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
I've got a question. Is the Bay Trail going to be completed earlier than the rest of the project, or is that going to all be at one time?
I would expect the Bay Trail to be completed prior to this being complete. Indianola will begin construction before the trail. I'm not completely up to speed on Humboldt County's schedule at this time, but I believe there have been some minor delays just with permitting and some other items and challenges they're working through and right of way and whatnot. So I don't know when their begin construction date is, but I would expect them to be done a little bit before this project would be completed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, great presentation. It really, really made things clear.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, as a new member to HCOG. This was very informative and helpful to me. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? I have to say and agree with everyone that it was a very good presentation. It was informative and it was easy to follow, and the way you laid it out, we could see where each element was, and I appreciate that very much. And thank you for your work on this and taking the time out of your vacation. And I have to say there was no little voices in the background.
I heard a few back there, but I guess they weren't quite loud enough. I heard Mom back there telling them to, Dad's on a meeting. No, but I apologize because last time you guys had a board meeting, I was actually also camping. And I actually do work. I don't camp all the time. But so I told Beth I really wanted to make this one. So anyway, it's my pleasure. And, I felt like the project hit a real major exciting milestone. And I know in the past, sometimes I've had to attend these meetings to talk about, cost increases or, very not fun topics. And so if I could bring some good news, I'm going to take that opportunity. So anyway, yeah, no, we're very excited, and there's obviously a lot more to come. We haven't started construction. Are there going to be challenges in construction? I mean, every project we have hurdles we have to jump through, and I'm sure this one's not going to be any different. But I think we've got a lot of great people working on it. We've got great partners with HCOG, and so I just like to keep you guys informed and involved, because you guys are a key element to making this project happen, and you guys have made this a priority for HCOG. So Caltrans appreciates that, and I think the community very deeply appreciates that, and I'm looking forward to other opportunities to be able to work together as well. So.
Well, thank you for what you've done. We appreciate it and look forward to seeing the dirt fly. Have a good vacation then. And that brings us to our next portion, the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So I do have quite a few updates, and I'll just get through them here. First off, May is Bike Month, so we are in it, and get out there and ride your bike. You can also check out Love to Ride Humboldt, and there will be information about all the remaining activities, and you can log rides, and so just wanted to put a plug in for that. Also, we have the pavement management plan. We put out an RFP for that. We did receive 2 responses, and we've got members of the TAC currently working to evaluate those proposals so that we can make a recommendation on who to contract with. There's also a Mckinleyville transit study that's been in the works, and this is something that was in the OWP. I think it started, before I joined on. There's been a consultant group from the University of Montana and local efforts to do outreach, and they have put together a public draft. This is to evaluate the feasibility of improving public transit in Mckinleyville. So that public draft will be going to the SS TAC at their June meeting, and then also coming to your board in June for comment, and then the final version for acceptance in July. But it is hitting the streets really soon, so I wanted to make sure that you all know that that's out there if you hear any information about it, that we have been involved in that. There's also funding to talk about, which is really exciting, and this is through the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. CRSA is much easier to say, and there's 2 parts to this funding, and the first part is really flexible funding that's coming to HCOG, and that's about $650,000. So we'll start working with the TAC to think about how to distribute those funds and think about what projects and how we want to see those go forward. That particular pot of funding is very accessible, so we do need to identify the projects, but basically we will identify those, make sure they qualify, and it can be for a variety of things, individual projects. It can even go like luckily here at HCOG we're not at a loss for like making payroll, but it could go to that. Some COGs may be using it for that, so it's very flexible. So we want to look closely at that and get information and recommendations from our tax so we can make really good use of those funds. And then the other part of the CRSA funding is what they're calling the 2021 mid-cycle STIP. So this is goes through really the traditional STIP process, other than it's just sort of not with the rest of the cycle. So we in Humboldt County are receiving $1.2 million in shares. Now this is in addition to what we will get allocated, whatever's coming through the regular STIP process in, I believe that'll be June, that we'll learn that amount as well. But this is separate from that. And as I mentioned at the last board meeting, we're out of the hole essentially. And so we are, for the first time in many years, looking forward to, coordinating with the TAC and all of you about new projects to program. So that's coming. And I wanted to let you know there's also another 63,000 in there that comes to HCOG as planning, program, and monitoring money, PPM, which you'll see in our OWP. this particular money isn't reflected in the OWP just yet. It will require an amendment. We basically have to request it still, and this all just got approved at the CTC last week. So we'll get caught up, and we already have for this OWP that's hot off the presses, we have an amendment in the works already. But that's great to be receiving additional funds, and we'll certainly be working to make sure they get put to good use. And then I did want to also talk, I think that this conversation about resuming in-person meetings is happening in probably all of your own jurisdictions. And so we are watching that closely and trying to figure out what our recommendation would be. And we'd love to put this on the board agenda for next month. And we're kind of hoping that by then, maybe some of you will have done test runs in your own jurisdiction and can report back on best practices, what's working. And we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it, connecting with other COGs and finding out what they're up to. But we do want to be having that discussion, and June 15th I think is sort of the go date. So maybe July meeting could be some different format than just what we're working with now, depending on what we decide. So we'll put that on the agenda for next month to make sure we can have a conversation about it. And then the last one is the hardest one for me to mention. We do have some staffing changes coming up here at HCOG, and Christy has announced her retirement. And we're very happy for her. It's very sad to see her go, though. We do still have 2 months. She gave us plenty of notice. So this isn't goodbye tonight by any means. We'll have her with us for the next 2 board meetings. But we are anxious to make sure that we are active in refilling that position is very important, and looking at that transition. So we have started advertising for that. So I also wanted to make sure that nobody's surprised by seeing those advertisements, and that your board is aware of what's going on. But yeah, we will miss her tremendously, and more to come on that. But yeah, I wanted to make that announcement. And that's it for my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Do we have any questions for Beth? Doesn't look like it, but very timely conversation regarding in-person meetings, because that topic did come up earlier prior to the meeting. So you may have heard some of that.
Yeah.
But thank you for that, and we will miss Christy. She's a stalwart and easy to work with, and does a great job. And so, best of luck in her retirement in the future. So, moving on to a report on the Caltrans last chance grade.
Yeah, I received an email from Jamie Mattioli. He's the project manager also for the Broadway Complete Streets project. So he gave me updates for both projects. His last chance grade update says that regarding the project to build a long-term solution at last chance grade, Caltrans, with the help and coordination with many stakeholders, has decided to narrow the number of alternatives down to 2. Alternative F, a full tunnel that bypasses the landslide, and Alternative X, that mitigates and stabilizes the landslide and stays close to the current alignment. I think Gordon Johnson reported similarly at the last meeting. Jamie further says that narrowing the alternatives will save millions in studies and reduce the environmental timeline by 1 year. We now expect to complete the environmental phase by 2025. So environmental studies are ongoing this summer and fall, and that concludes his report on the last chance grade. Shall I move on to the Broadway Complete Streets update?
Yes, please.
So Caltrans would like to appreciate the partnership with HCOG and the City of Eureka, as well as others. The South Broadway Complete Streets project is on track to complete its project initiation document this July. This document will establish this cost scope and schedule, so the project can be programmed by the California Transportation Commission this August. And that's a pretty quick turnaround on that. project study report. So so they are working hard on this one. That's my own addition.
But that's good. That's great. Thank you. And things move forward, things happen.
And you know, as always, you know, if there's any questions that you have that I can follow up on, you know, I can take notes and make sure that we provide a response either at the next meeting or beforehand. So
I
That's all.
don't have anything. I don't know if anybody else has a question regarding those two projects. Maybe Gordon might, I don't know. Don't see any hands. So I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And now to the Eureka Arcata Safety Corridor Safety Patrol.
Yeah, we just have a small update on that, and we did get a report that due to staffing levels, they haven't had as much opportunity to conduct the supplemental patrols over the last month. So we just had 19 stops with 4 citations, 15 warnings, and that 2 people were cited for driving while unlicensed. But we didn't receive any information, our favorite information, about who the winners or the worst of the worst were. So that's kind of anticlimactic, but we do have those stats to report.
All right, well, thank you for that. Is there any other comments or questions before we adjourn?
Mike, I've got a question regarding the safety corridor. At some point, you know, we're gonna stop funding the Eureka PD to go out there and control traffic. When do we anticipate that happening?
I believe that's paid for partly out of the safe funds, if I'm not mistaken.
It's totally paid out of safe funds. Yeah, we're allocating $300,000 a year. We've got 1.4 million in our bank account for that particular fund. You know, sometime we're going to run out of the need to be out there, you know, controlling speed. And when that happens, you know, we're going to have $300,000 more at our discretion to spend on various other things relative to safe. Maybe it's satellite phones in remote areas, but someday that's going to come up.
Yeah.
I will say we do have contracts coming up to look at over the next couple months. Those contracts that we have with EPD and CHP are coming due. And that was part of the reason I felt the need to suggest that we do the strategic plan for what we want to do with this funding. Because yeah, I think we have some options coming forward, and with the safety improvements, maybe they're not as necessary on the corridor. And, you know, I will be doing my best to report back on, again, the variety of ways we can use this funding, you know, especially in rural settings like ours, where we don't have the rush hour crunch. You know, what we can do with it that would be productive.
Thank you.
As the construction starts, there's going to be a greater need probably for more patrols. And I know that the CHP provides supplemental patrolling during construction. And I don't know if that's something that would come up in the conversation with traffic control, with Caltrans and the contractor, but I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, Mike, if I might add that with my background in Caltrans, funds were provided as supplemental funds for a contract that came from Caltrans, and that were for traffic control by CHP in the construction zone. So there should be, you know, a pretty good chunk of money, probably, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe $1 million to provide traffic control by CHP or Eureka PD during construction period.
Yeah, well, I know I've seen them out there, and now I know that in most every contract that I've dealt with, there's been a traffic control element to it, but not always to this with a law enforcement patrol, just a traffic control element to the contract. Any otherwise, we will be adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for your time today for this. A lot of areas covered, a lot of important things reported on. So thank you.
Yeah, everybody.
Good night. Bye.
Have a good evening.